Even though he was in bed next to me, it seemed like he was miles away. I waited for his lips to touch my shoulder or his hand to find mine, but his body did not move. Like a closed door, his back was turned away from me. For me at least, the silence between us was rejection rather than merely absence. His breath was steady, his demeanour calm, too calm for a man who had been coming home late, smelling faintly of something sweet and floral. 1,000 imagined scenarios played out in my head. Was it a secretary? A client? A fling from the gym? He rarely went to, but always mentioned. The ideas were persistent and acidic as they tore at me. I should have gone straight to him, but I hesitated for some reason. I might not have wanted to know. Perhaps my need for vengeance outweighed my desire for clarification. I briefly feared that he might reach for me when I felt his weight shift to his side of the bed and sink further into the mattress, but he adjusted his pillow and dozed off even more. A lump of anger swelled in my throat. How dare he? The next morning, he kissed my cheek before leaving, as though nothing were wrong. His lips felt hollow, his touch distant. "Have a good day," he said, before the door clicked shut behind him. And that was when my mind began to spin. Tom, his co-worker, had always been kind to me, too kind. His compliments lingered in the air long after he spoke them, his gaze skimming my body with an appreciation my husband no longer seemed capable of. I dismissed it as harmless flirtation in the past, but now I saw it differently. That afternoon I texted him just something innocuous. "Hey, are you free to drop by? I could use your opinion on something." He responded quickly, his eagerness palpable. When he arrived, I was ready. I'd chosen a dress that flattered my curves, one I hadn't worn since before I was married. My hair fell in loose waves, my perfume subtle but seductive. When I opened the door, his eyes widened slightly, his smile lingering longer than it should have. We made small talk at first, but I could feel the tension building. His eyes followed me as I moved around the kitchen, pouring as glasses of wine. It felt intentional when I leaned against the bar and allowed my dress's fabric to cling to my thighs. The neckline dipped just enough to tempt the first time his hand touched mine. I didn't back off. Rather, I linger, brushing my fingers across his skin long enough to cause a spark. His breathing hitched, and I felt a surge of power when he kissed me. It was quick and almost apologetic, as though he were testing the waters. But I kissed him back, and that was all the encouragement he needed. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me against him, his lips moving urgently against mine. My body responded instinctively, years of neglect unraveling in an instant. I led him to the couch where his hands roamed freely, his touch igniting a fire I hadn't felt in years. It was reckless, raw, and thrilling. The way he touched me was so different from my husband, less familiar, more eager, like he couldn't get enough of me. I reveled in it, letting him consume me, letting myself forget everything else. The first time it happened, it felt surreal, almost like stepping into a dream I couldn't wake from. But the second time it was deliberate, planned. He came over under the pretense of helping with something around the house, though neither of us truly cared about appearances anymore. I greeted him with a knowing look, one that mirrored his, and led him inside his hand brushed mine. Deliberate this time, and I let it linger. There was no hesitation. My fingers curled around the fabric of his shirt as I pulled him closer, my lips finding his with a hunger that surprised even me. By the time we reached the bedroom, his lips were on my neck, my collarbone trailing heat with every kiss. His hands moved with purpose, peeling away layers of clothing with an urgency that made my pulse quicken. When his fingers grazed bare skin, I gasped my body. Responding instinctively to his touch, we fell into the bed together, the cool sheets a sharp contrast to the heat between us. His hands explored every inch of me, deliberate and teasing, as though he were memorizing my body. Each kiss, each whisper of breath against my skin felt like a spark, igniting something I hadn't felt in years. When he pressed into me, it was slow, deliberate, his movements drawing out every sensation, every tremor of pleasure I arched into him. My body seeking more, the rhythm of our movements, building to a crescendo that left me trembling beneath him. His breath mingled with mine, the heat of his body grounding me in the moment, making me forget everything but the pleasure coursing through me. The intensity consumed us both, every touch and sound, a testament to the raw connection W.A. had created. We lay entangled together when it was all over, the silence weighed down by whispered realities. I couldn't force myself to look him in the eyes, yet his fingers made aimless patterns over my skin. A nagging sensation of remorse started to take the place of the happiness I had experienced minutes before. Days turned into weeks, and I began to see Tom less as an escape and more as a lifeline. I told myself it was justified that my husband deserved this, that he was the one who had betrayed me first. But then one evening, I found something that shattered the narrative I'd been clinging to, a small box tucked away in the back of his closet. There were old photos, letters of love I had written to him during our early dating days, and a diamond necklace receipt. My heart sank. I remembered the perfume I'd smelled on him. It was the same scent I'd once worn a gift he'd surprised me with years ago. He wasn't cheating. He never had been. The realization hit me like a freight train. I destroyed my marriage over a lie. I told myself a fantasy I'd conjured to justify my own actions. Tom was a distraction, a way to avoid confronting the truth, that I was the one who had failed us, the one who had crossed the line as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the evidence of my husband's loyalty. I was overcome with regret, but it was too late. No amount of shame could take away the sensation of Tom's touch on my flesh,